Welcome back to Healthy and Active in the Couve. I am trainer Nick Medlock, also a nutrition coach. And with me, as always, is Dr. Trent Corey, Doctor of Physical Therapy. And we've got a very special guest again in a recurring segment that is focused on overall holistic health, but focusing on nutrition, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, and herbs. Our special guest is Lila Swanberg. So welcome back, Lila.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to pick up on where we left off on a workshop that our guests may not have known that you did for Northwest Personal Training a couple months ago. We were talking about hormone health, and we started at the end of the segment to get into hormones in the liver, and I'd like to expand on that because we ran out of time for that. So we were talking about how hormones are made up of cholesterol and how low-fat diets and statins affect that. But also we started to get into the different enzymes like DAO or diamine oxidase enzyme in the liver, and how we can use food and herbs and things to help us have a healthy liver and support our liver.
It's a great and rich topic. And when I heard we're going to continue the conversation on the liver today, I really started pondering how overlooked the liver is as an organ in the Western medical model.
Yeah.
Doctors pay no attention to the liver unless you are having like acute liver failure. And
Hmm.
it's such a big part of natural healing. The liver and liver dysfunction is one of the most common patterns I see, and it is underlying so many things, like you mentioned, hormonal health, blood sugar balance,
Hmm.
inflammation, even things like anxiety, reactivity, anger can be tied back to our liver. So I just want to take a moment and say it is such an important organ and it is such a workhorse. Like it is
Yeah.
involved in everything. So if
Yeah.
your liver is sluggish, you are going to feel it in so many ways.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got into thinking about the liver. I've followed along in my father's footsteps as far as in herbal health, and he studied a lot of books and makes his own tinctures, and I've been fascinated by that. And I was listening to this. He was doing a lot of Islamic folk herbalism, and this gentleman, I forget his name, but he was saying that in his practice, he notices a lot that he considered the liver the king of the organs, and that he doesn't take NSAIDs or anything like that, because in Western medicine, a lot of times it makes the liver slow down, according to him, and sluggish. And so I started considering a lot of that, and then getting into the psychosomatic kind of work of, the liver being associated with anger and things like that, and watching a lot of my clients suffer with gallbladder kinds of things. If you're in pain, you're going to be a little bit more quick to anger, I think. But then also, like you were saying, there's a lot of functional processes that go in with your hormones, with cholesterol. It is a huge hub, and the liver does so many things other than just being a filter, so to speak.
Right. Well, and you touched on something really big there. It is our detox organ, and anything that, we ingest has to in some way get processed through our bodies. So you mentioned NSAIDs, those get processed through the liver. Many drugs get processed through the liver, so it totally adds to the liver's job and burden that it has to undertake. And Trent, we were just talking about this a little bit earlier. You mentioned, I'm sure you deal with a lot of people that take a lot of painkillers and don't even know the effects it has on the body and what our body has to do to deal with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially you know, I don't have a lot of people take straight up painkillers, but like, yeah, they might take a Tylenol, right? That's something that's pretty rough on the body. Especially the liver has to take care of that. And then ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Ibuprofen is one of the biggest ones. I just see people, they just kind of think it's just a thing they just should take, or just it's like, and they don't even think about it. They're like, oh yeah, I take this every day. I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, like, are you kidding me? Like, there's so many better ways to help, and what's great about having a more holistic view of how the body works and how we don't need to be taking these things anymore because we're finding actually how harmful they can be. And so you think that's helping one thing, but usually it's causing all sorts of other issues. So that's great. We have other alternatives. I'm glad that you're here to share some of those and how the liver can be a helper. We can help it out.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny, and I was an athlete in high school. I played so many sports, and I was always in pain. Like I always had a pulled muscle or something broken or something going on. And I would take a ton of ibuprofen. Like I was probably taking ibuprofen most days of the week, and I thought that was normal and okay because it's something you can go buy at the store. I can go to Costco and buy a giant bottle with 500 tablets in it, and it makes it feel like it's okay and it's safe, and we don't even associate it with any danger because of how easy it is to get and how accepted it is and just how accessible it is. So I think just even bringing attention to the fact that over-the-counter drugs like ibuprofen have a cost is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I've gotten into this discussion. I think aspirin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is like isolated from the white willow bark. And so a lot of people are like, well, it's essentially coming from nature, but there's an element where you're isolating and removing what's natural in all of the elements. You're isolating a single part, and as a functional coach for full body functionality, if we're only isolating things, then when I get into function, I've seen this with bodybuilders who just work on massive biceps and have strength in these individual muscles, but they start doing functional tire flips and blow out their biceps. So isolation isn't always so good if we're not putting it in the whole system.
Oh, that's such a great point. And you're right, the original aspirin does come from the salicylates in white willow's bark. So we think that this drug is derived from something natural, but when it gets to that point, it is super manipulated. It is so far from what you would find in nature. And what's cool about plants is they're perfectly balanced. We're taking the whole, and there's enzymes and constituents to counteract certain things. And when it's taken in this whole form, our body recognizes it and it knows what to do with it. But when we sit there and isolate compounds, then we're turning plants into drugs, and they become foreign to our body, and they act in less of a holistic way and more of a very like, I'm going to bully the body into doing something because I'm taking, way more of this thing than you would ever get in nature and giving it to your body. Now your body has to deal with it. So I love that you touched on it because that is a misconception for a lot of things. And it probably is really big in your work, just the holistic approach of, as you said, you can't just overwork your bicep. What about your other, hundreds of muscles that you have? It's all connected and it all matters. And if you favor or over favor something, then the whole body's going to come out of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that aspect because we have to think holistically. And sometimes I have an analogy of like making a tent. You can't get the tent up and full structured until all the tension on all the support lines are there. If one of them is slack and the other one's over tight, your tent's going to fall down.
That's a great metaphor.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit because we started to get into DAO and cruciferous vegetables because I have had to supplement that before when I got estrogen dominant in my life. And I think that was a lot due to stress. And we don't have to go into the whole hormone cycle with that, but we were talking about how cortisol enacts this effect of hormones in your body. But how I'd like to discuss how, as a Ayurvedic practitioner and somebody who uses herbal medicine, how would you address something like estrogen dominance and how maybe cruciferous vegetables or something like that can help balance the hormones in your body?
Yeah, that's a great question. So whoever has estrogen dominance and we're working with, we're going to look at it on an individualist basis because everyone is going to have a little bit of a different way that they got there and a different way to get out of it. So we're going to still look at the individual, where the imbalances lie, what's going on in the diet, what's going on with the organs, is our liver under functioning? Are we taking in too many estrogens through our diet? Is there something else causing the imbalance? So first part is to figure out why we're estrogen dominant. And then the second part is usually going to be a matter of restoring balance. And as you already touched on, most estrogen dominance cases are going to be heavily involved with the liver. And so getting the liver detoxing properly is going to be huge. And there is great ways that you can do it with food to support that process. So you mentioned cruciferous vegetables. They're very detoxifying. They're anti-inflammatory. They have a lot of fiber. They are really great for helping that system go. They have DIM in them. I don't get too much into the phase 1, phase 2 detoxification. I haven't needed to. I usually bring in a lot of herbal support to help general liver detoxification and function. I was going to say something else there.
Well, I just realized I've been seeing DAO the whole time because I've been thinking of histamine intolerance and things. I meant DIM. DIM is in what's cruciferous vegetables, not DAO. So I have to correct myself immediately. It happens all the time. I get my acronyms mixed up. But yeah, DIM.
Well, and the world of nutraceuticals is like so big and there's so much going on. And it's funny because this is DAO enzymes have come up a couple times for me this week.
Yeah.
So I already went down the rabbit hole.
Which is in olive oil. It's in quercetin in apple. So I love to do all of that kind of stuff for your food, for your allergies also. But yeah, I mixed DIM and DAO because it began with a D. So yeah, apologies.
All good, all good.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't use either in clinical practice. I do most of what I need to do for the liver with herbs and food. Another really great, just at home, if you feel like your liver is sluggish, some things to do are taproot vegetables, especially beets in like high quantity, are going to be so detoxifying for the liver and just really, really great. I usually try to pair food and herbs in my approaches, and root veggies, burdock root, turnips, beets, carrots, rutabaga, all of those are going to be really great for the liver.
Yeah.
And then antioxidant things, pigment things with color are always going to be really great for those processes as well.
And Trent will like this because he knows I geek out on nitric oxide, but I accidentally said nitrous oxide once and he corrected me in public and I loved it. It's like, no, that's the laughing gas. But beets, as when I was reading on them, help put more nitric oxide in your system, especially when you're dealing with like gut kinds of things. And so that helps repair your cells on a systemic level. And so here's my follow-up question for that, because I love doing juicing and using beets, especially when I'm thinking of for me, I use it a lot for like lower intestine, gut health kinds of things. But so I want to end this question because I know where I think I know where you're going to go. When we do detox diets, juicing and everything, does that detox, or does it support the liver and other organs in doing what they naturally do?
The whole detoxing myth rabbit hole. People like to say detoxing is not real and juices don't do the detoxing, your body does the detoxing. I'm a believer that these things help your body do the detoxing. So that's how herbs and supplements, well, not all supplements, but that's how herbs at least, and plants and food in general work. They restore function to the body so the body is able to do what it needs to do. We believe that the body has the capability to get rid of what it doesn't need, to produce the hormones that it needs to produce, that if given the right material and doesn't have too much waste to deal with, it should, in theory, function properly. So where Western medicine doesn't believe the body knows how to function properly and they go in with drugs to kind of bully the body into doing what they think it needs to do, we believe the body knows what to do, but sometimes it needs support in the form of these nutrients that come from the earth. So yeah, I believe that the beet juice helps the liver perform better.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So now, medicine aside, let's get into Western diet, or the standard American diet, which I say is sad, standard American diet. Because one of the questions that came up in the workshop was fatty liver disease, but non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So if we are not getting the right types of nutrients, and I'll say the right kinds of tools and equipment for our body to function through our food, from our nutrition. Of course, all of those things are going to help put those nutrients and the tools back into the system to help. But the question was, can you use fasting to help with fatty liver disease? And so I looked up that a little bit more, and so my intuition was yes, but I couldn't say that even as a bystander there. It hinted, and I do a lot of intermittent fasting coaching, but yes. So the model is that when you start to get into that fasting, it does help all of those toxins to start being worked with, because you're in that rest and past the rest and digest, you're in the resting and healing, this healing stage, and that autophagy can set in. But also it does help help flush it out. It starts to really work on adipose tissue, not adipose, sorry, I'm going to blank on that type of fat, the visceral fat. It helps work on the visceral fat, but it also, the liver just starts to do what the liver does, instead of having to deal with all the extra toxins from, like, say, all the super highly refined processed foods. So it just shows that you were just saying, when we chill out from the having our liver overwork from all of the toxic kinds of stuff, it knows what to go back and do. So you can really help restore your hormones, your liver with the fasting.
100%. I will say it's kind of a yes and there's some caveats in my opinion. One, doing any sort of extreme diet like fasting, carnivore, keto, Mediterranean. A portion of why these things work is because, like you mentioned, we're cutting out the crap.
Right.
Stop eating the crap, then our body's naturally going to start being able to perform better. It's not necessarily the specific diet or the lack of food per se, but what we're not eating. But I'm a fan of fasting for certain people in certain conditions. Like you said, I think you can make really quick changes in the body. But the problem I see in actual clinical practice is there's this pattern where people are overfed but undernourished.
Yes.
And so people have super, super blood sugar dysregulation. People have no energy in the tank in the form of nutrient reserves. And sometimes when we fast them or we do detoxing, it puts them in a worse state because their body's so stressed. So I would encourage people to, one, work with practitioners, or two, really slowly ease in to any sort of fasting or detoxing to make sure your body is in a place to do it and it won't stress you out more.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had a client and he was a skinny diabetic, had a hospital event, came out, got diagnosed with diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver, leaky gut, all kinds of things. But he started rapidly losing weight. So if we treated him like we treated a normal diabetic or someone with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and we didn't give him food and we put a bunch of restraints in, he would have gone further into depletion, and like he was losing muscle mass and tissue, and he was like deteriorating. So he was not a candidate for any sort of detoxing or fasting at the time, and he needed to be built up and replenished before he could do those kinds of therapies. So it really is person specific, and that's why individual medicine is like the future, because everyone needs something different.
Yes, I love that. My mantra is we are our own scientists, and so so when I'm coaching, I'm like I'm helping us. This is a we are our own scientists. But you touched on something, and I think I brought it up when I was talking about it at the workshop, that I wouldn't recommend that fasting for somebody with fatty liver until we know other things are going on, because there's that idea of a healing crisis where it's just too much healing too fast. And especially, like, say, if you've got leaky gut or gut permeability and all those toxins drain from your liver, they're just going to recycle back through. So it's like you're going to get some benefit somewhere, but also, like you were saying, if you're already pre-depleted,
Yeah.
But the things I've been reading is to ease into the fasting, do short bits and don't do it all the time.
Hmm.
But I personally like, rotating certain things. First just look at what is going on into your body without changing, so you can see when you're being a scientist. What's all there to begin with. So when you start changing, you change things one thing at a time, so you don't get overloaded with, I don't know which one of these did it. Right. So, but I think with the fasting, too, it may be more depleting and more stress on your body, which causes, more cortisol. And, you have to be in the right position to start it. So that's why you definitely need somebody to help you and guide you through that process. So I appreciate you always bringing up, having a practitioner helping you with it. This is a communal process.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, I love that you said that we're our own scientists because it's really complicated, the health patterns that we're seeing in modern people today. If you go back to Ayurvedic traditional classic textbooks, we're seeing patterns in people that they said would never be possible. And
Wow.
so we are just as a whole in a very out of whack place, and it's complicated, and some people need to get in with the detoxing first, some people need to get in with the building first, and the best guide system is going to be who you're working with and how they're feeling, because that's going to give you the feedback if you're on the right track or not.
Yeah.
I or you or Trent as clinicians can do our best to assess, but it's the person's feedback who's actually living it that's going to make or break
Yeah.
the treatment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
No, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, I think back to well, I've talked to you about this, Nick, Dr. Jack Cruz, and he talks about, the circadian rhythms and how we need to connect to Earth, and those such a big thing. One of his big taglines is redox before detox.
mm,
So the redox potential is a certain amount of electrochemical issues in your body. Um, I'm not too familiar, but the whole process is basically making sure that you have that corrected first, because like you mentioned, these anomalies that your Veda can't even explain now. This modern world's zany, man. Like, we got Wi-Fi everywhere. We got, these crazy fluorescent lights that are shining at 8 o'clock at night, where, or at midnight, and we're taking in noonday June sun in our eyes at different times. Like, I'd like to have people set on that first before we start to get into the food stuff. And that's what Dr. Jack talks about all the time. Like, you can talk all you want about the food, and it's still important, but it's also like, you don't get your body synced to what nature has designed for this human body for millions of years. We're not gonna see as much of a change. We can have impact, but we might be still pushing up a hill because we're not affecting that. But it's an interesting thing to just think about that process. That's what I try to do, at least with folks. But there's only so much time, right? So
yeah.
the goal is just to try to find the right time to discuss these things, and make sure people are considering those as well. So.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And I don't have an exact answer for this, but we were discussing the circadian rhythm in the workshop, and since you brought it up, I had forgotten I was going to ask this question to you, Lila. So the sleep cycle, because we started getting into sleep and we started getting into the circadian rhythm. And I've talked with an acupuncturist once because I kept waking up at a certain amount of time, and she said it was the liver.
Mhm.
And so since we're talking about liver, I think that's like around the 3 o'clock zone. I know what your thoughts are, but can you share your thoughts with us on the circadian rhythms, the lights that we were just talking about, and getting with the time flow of nature as far as it affects our hormones and our liver?
I'll say this without getting too on my soapbox, but the farther we get away from nature, the more health issues we're going to have. And as Trent pointed out, we are living in artificial boxes with artificial lighting that is taking us farther and farther and farther and farther away from what nature intended. And we feel it. I mean, look at the mental health issues and the depression and the anxiety that we are all dealing with in this day and age. And it's because we are becoming so far removed from nature. Circadian rhythm issues are rampant. And that's part of balancing hormones, right? It's hormones that govern the circadian rhythm. And it is challenging work in clinical practice because not everybody can get rid of their lights and go dark once the sun goes down. And like, that's just not the society we're living in. So these are really real problems. And that doesn't mean that, there's nothing we can do because supporting the body, supporting the physiology, still waking up and getting exposed to morning sun and evening sun is going to be huge. I don't know if this is appropriate for this platform, but I just started experimenting with microdosing mushrooms to resync circadian rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, tools out there that we have that get us a little closer back to nature and give our body some of the remembrance that it has of the rhythms that it wants to be a part of. But it is absolutely a huge part of the healing process and often overlooked. I mean, even the sunlight that filters in through windows is deranged and giving us incomplete solar rays, and it's like it's all affecting us in so many ways, and some people are more affected than other people. If we look into like Ayurvedic constitutions and body types, some people are going to be more susceptible, but it's a huge problem and a huge challenge. And I will say insomnia is huge. I work with so many people that have insomnia, and it's not falling asleep, it's staying asleep
Yeah.
that is hard. And the times that people do wake up in the night does give us great information for what is potentially going wrong in their body. So you're right, around 3 p.m. is when your liver should be doing its work. And if that's continually waking you up, then there's something to look at there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, awesome. Well, we could talk about this for a long time. I'm going to have to wrap it up just for time's sake and for my schedule because I've got to get on to a client. But Lila, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to all the future talks that we're going to have. Do you have anything coming up that you'd like to promote?
No, I'll just plug my podcast, Herbalism Uncensored. I don't have any talks or workshops coming up, but I have a lot of fun stuff planned for 2026. So get on my email list, follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook, and stay around.
Yeah, right on. Well, we can add some links too, so you can add that onto the social media that we have on Facebook and YouTube and all of that. So, so thank you so much again for being here, and we'll have you on definitely more next year. So thank you so much. And Dr. Trent, always a pleasure to be a part of this with you. Thank you for helping Vancouver stay active and healthy.
Awesome. No problem, Nick. This is awesome. Great. Great to have you, Lila. Awesome.
Well, thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Very cool.
All right. Well, we'll see you all next time. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe to Healthy and Active in the Couve, and we will see you next time.